Hi and welcome to Shift to Strong. My name is Frankie and today I'm going to be talking about mindset. So as a personal trainer of mostly women over the age of 35, I really care about your long-term health and well-being, which is why I really wanted to talk about this topic today, because it's so essential to your physical health, because it's really linked to your mental health. And those two are inextricably linked. You cannot separate one from the other. And I realise as I'm working mostly with women who are over 35, they've potentially had behavioural patterns for a certain number of years that have led them to a situation which they're not happy with, and wanted to make a change. And it's really important to realise how strong your mind is, and be able to tap into that strength to help you move forward in whatever situation you might be battling with, but also for your long-term physical and mental health. So I'm going to use my first-hand experience today to show you just how important working on your mindset is. So I'm going to start by defining mindset. What is mindset? So it's basically just your mentality, the way you make sense of the world, your beliefs. It can come from cultural background or upbringing, and it's just going to be the way you perceive your world. So it seems a little bit difficult to really comprehend exactly what it is. But the word perception for me, perceive, is really important when we're talking about mindset, because your mindset really builds your world, your reality that you live in. So my perception of the world will be different from another person's because my upbringing has been different from another person's. And in mindset, we can sort of have different definitions. So today I'm going to mostly focus on a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. So what I recommend is a growth mindset, and I'm going to show you why a fixed mindset can be damaging and how much a growth mindset can be a positive impact on your health long term. So a fixed mindset, what is that? A fixed mindset will be, so someone who has a fixed mindset will be someone who believes that their situation, their circumstances cannot be changed easily or at all. So someone who believes that intelligence and skills can't be acquired, that will tend to avoid confrontation and difficult situations because they don't believe that change can happen in those situations, and they will sort of lack motivation because they have this perception that things will be difficult, that they're sort of a victim of a situation, and that there's nothing they can do about that. So they may end up with quite a lot of stress that they don't really realise is stress, but it will weigh on them because they're carrying this sort of situation that they cannot do anything about. If you apply that to health, if you have a health issue or something you need to change in your body, then if you have a fixed mindset, it's going to be difficult. You're going to lack motivation. For example, you might say, okay, I would like to change my body composition. So maybe I need to start doing some sport, but I wasn't very good at sport in school. So, I'm not good at it, so I can't do that. That'll be sort of, it's a simple way of explaining how someone with a fixed mindset may perceive a potential change. So this can lead to unhealthy coping behaviours because you're managing with the load, the stress of not being able to change something in your life. Someone with a growth mindset will be someone who believes that you can acquire skills and intelligence, that they can make a change in their life if they need to, and they may not be happy with their situation, but they will take proactive steps towards changing that situation. And so they perceive change as possible. They perceive change as something they can make change. They can do something about it. So their world opens up because they are potentially wanting to make a change in their body composition. And they might not have been very good at sport in school, but it doesn't mean they can't get better at it. They can try, and then they may be able to make change. So it's really these two separate ideas of I cannot change my situation and I can change my situation. It seems simple, but it's extremely complex, and I'm going to explain why it's so complex by giving you the example of me with my fixed mindset that I used to have. So I consider today that I have more of a growth mindset, but I spent many years with a fixed mindset and I'm now able to recognize that. And the fixed mindset led me to depression. And that's why I think it's really important to talk about, because I realise now how that the weight of that that impossibility to change can lead to really destroying your mental health. And so when I had a fixed mindset, I'm going to say, so this was years before I became a personal trainer. So if you know me today, you know me as a personal trainer, absolutely full of energy, do loads of things all the time. I'm relatively strong. I can lift things, and I'm always doing sort of like physical challenges and that kind of thing, taking on new challenges. That was not me before. Okay, so if you look at me today being like, yeah, it's easy for you because you're strong and all that, I was extremely mal-coordinated as a teenager. I did play netball. I was all right at netball, but team sports weren't really my thing. And I was often injured when, like, through running, and I never really succeeded in sort of sports where I had to be coordinated. So yeah, I just did lots of horse riding and running, and that was about it. So bearing in mind, I don't have a natural capacity to natural abilities that give me an advantage that would help me to become a personal trainer. And I was actually pretty weak before I became a personal trainer. The only thing I was really good at was running. So that's sort of the thing that saved me. So because of my fixed mindset, I spent many years doing a job that I was unfulfilled in, and avoiding confrontation, believing that I couldn't really change anything in my life, and just not feeling satisfied. So the job I was doing was a well-respected job. However, it was very sort of legal, financial, administrative, and I didn't feel fulfillment with that job. I didn't feel that I had much reward from it. But because I'd followed that line of studies and that was what I knew what to do, that's what I thought I had to do, and I just had to get on with it. And I remember being very sort of jealous and bitter when I would come across people that were succeeding, doing something that they were really fulfilled by, and thinking they had circumstances that were different to mine, and that giving myself excuses that, well, they could do that because of something they had, like they're very lucky, they're just naturally lucky, or they're naturally really good at that thing that they do, so that's why they can do that and that's why I can't, so I just have to carry on the way I am, doing the job that I'm not fulfilled by. And I would use running as my escape from that, to try and get away from the stress of it, but that got to the point where I was injured a lot of the time because obviously I was doing it too much and not listening to my body, but because I needed that release. So that was my sort of unhealthy coping behaviour. And I would get physical pain when I got too stressed. And if it did get to the point where I was too stressed, I would try and leave my job. So I've now recognised the pattern of trying to leave my job. So I would quit without confronting any situations. And it got to the point where I had passed exams to become a civil servant in France, and I was working as a civil servant. And once you've done that, you can't just quit your job. You have to have some kind of confrontation or negotiation with HR, with your bosses, to be able to leave. So at that time, I am completely trapped by my mind because my mind believes that I cannot make a change. And that's how I ended up being diagnosed with depression, which at the time was a complete and utter shock to me. I just did not realise that's what I was living. I was exhausted by life, by getting up every day, going into the office. There was just this weight over me that I couldn't overcome it. And that is the point where my life literally did 360, 180, whatever you want to call it. And it was just an electroshock, which made me change everything. So before I was diagnosed, I had this diagnosis of depression. It was like mild, moderate, just diagnosed by the doctor. But before that, I had already in my mind that I wanted to change my job. So I remember thinking I would like to be a personal trainer, but that is impossible. My best childhood friend had come to visit me in Marseille, and I'd taken her hiking, and I remember her saying to me, "You would be such a good coach." And I remember thinking, like, that's just impossible for me. I would have to leave my job. I'd have to admit to my boss that I don't like my job, which just seemed impossible to me because I thought of the disappointment and the failure. I would have to learn a whole new skill set. I had no idea about anatomy, physiology, biomechanics. Like, all of that was completely alien to me. And I didn't even know what degrees I would need to become a personal trainer. And it was just something that was out of my reach. When I started working with a therapist because of having depression, I learnt to work on challenging my negative thoughts. So this therapist led me through cognitive behavioural therapy. So cognitive behavioural therapy teaches you to challenge your negative thoughts and helps you to realise how much those negative thoughts can affect your choices and your actions. So I realised that the negative thoughts I had been shaping all of my choices and my actions. So the negative thoughts being, I am not capable, because I've got this fixed mindset of not having the capacity to change, had led me to make choices and actions. Apply for jobs that were within my zone of comfort that I knew I could do because I didn't have to acquire a new skill set for those. Activities that I knew I could do, everything that I already knew how to do and was familiar to me, but that wasn't letting me be fulfilled or what I felt like was happiness. And so I realised that all of my thoughts, everything I perceived, was giving direction to my life, and I was letting my negative thoughts choose for me. Once I realised that, everything changed. Everything becomes possible because you realise that when you challenge those thoughts, your thought will be, it is impossible for me to become a personal trainer. It is impossible for me to insert whatever you want to do. And you can challenge that and be like, why is it impossible for me to do that? Surely if I get help to become stronger and find out what degree I need to do to become a personal trainer, why is it impossible? Why can't I do that? And so you start to challenge it. And so this started to change my perception of the world generally, and opened up doors and opportunities and possibilities that I just had not perceived as possible to me. They were already there. I could have done it before. I just had not realised that I had created a reality in which that was not possible. I underline that because it's so important to say I have created a reality in which it's not possible, because if you can look outside of your reality, then you might see that something you want to do is possible, but you've just not realised it. So bearing in mind that at that time I didn't have the skill set, I knew that to become a personal trainer in France I would have to complete a year degree. I would need to spend all my savings. I had zero guarantee that I was going to pass all of the exams. I had zero guarantee that I was going to be able to set up a business after that. So at this time, there are a huge amount of obstacles. I would need to negotiate leaving my job, telling my boss that I didn't want to leave, so looking like a failure, because for me that was failing. And so I had a huge amount of obstacles. However, because I had used cognitive behavioural therapy, I knew that those were obstacles in my mind. And I then was very lucky that one of my friends, a really good friend of mine, quit her job and set up her own business around the same time I was thinking about doing it. And she actually just went ahead and did it. She hired an entrepreneurial coach, and that was the end of it. And I spent quite a lot of time with her in COVID, and I remember at that time that was when I made the decision. I was like, okay, the decision is made. Once you have made that decision, there's no going back, because you have decided that you're going to do it. So I hired the same entrepreneurial coach, and I worked a lot on mindset, of course, visualization, because at that time my growth mindset's still it's a bit fragile. We don't really know where we're going yet. We just know we want to make change. So I hired this entrepreneurial coach, and she helped me go through the steps of leaving my job and becoming a personal trainer. But I had to do all the work, I had to do all the negotiations, but she helped me work on visualization. So seeing the situation that I wanted to achieve and taking the steps to being proactive and taking those steps towards that, because I had so much fear that was holding me back. That just sort of helped me move along with each of the steps, and each time I would move forward with it, then I felt a little bit more confident. I was like, oh, okay, I've managed to tell my boss I want to leave. That's one tick. So a little bit more confident. Okay, maybe this is going to help, maybe this is actually going to become possible. So at the time I'm doing it, I have no idea if it's going to work. I knew I didn't have the strength to get into the entry tests of the personal training degree that I would need to do to legally be a personal trainer in France, because if you don't have that degree, you cannot train anyone. It's illegal. So I have to work really hard to get through these entry tests. I go to the entry test knowing I don't have the physical strength to do it, but with all of my determination to be able to do it, all of the believing, all of the visualization, and literally this relentless, inflexible determination to go forward with my project of becoming a personal trainer. So I managed to get onto the course because I think they could see that I was just not going to give up, and then it was just a series of sacrifices to become a personal trainer. So the point is that when you want to make a change, if you let yourself believe it's possible, then it's just a case of making sacrifices in order to achieve that goal. Okay, so for me to become a personal trainer, I had to spend all my savings, not have much money to live off for a while, pretty much give up my social life, pretty much give up running for quite a long time, everything I knew to dive into this whole new world of uncertainty. So I'm not saying your change needs to be that drastic, but if you look at the person I was before, unfulfilled in my job, depression, exhausted, injured all the time, to the person I am today, absolutely love my job. When I look back at my life before, I'm like, how did it take me this much time to make that change? It probably took me 3 to 4 years to decide to actually make that decision to do it. It's not years that I've lost, because that's life experience that I've still gained, but that sometimes I think we spend so much time waiting for the right moment. It's like there is no right moment. You just have to move forward with it. You just have to make that decision. Once you've made that decision, you put in place the steps to make that change. So this is where the growth mindset is so important to your mental health, because if you're unhappy with your situation, you just decide to change it and then you find a way. And that's so key to your long-term health, because you can stay in a situation for a long time. Perhaps you can stay in a situation which is affecting your health for a long time. And we've only got one body and one life to live. So you've got to take care of that. But I know it's not easy. I know firsthand that it's not easy. And when people say to me today, oh, you're lucky because you do a job that you love, I'm like, there's no luck involved in this. It was sheer determination, sacrifice, and believing in myself. But I did have the help of therapy and an entrepreneurial coach to get me through that, which I paid for. So really it was just me deciding to get help to achieve a goal that I wanted to achieve, and that makes me feel fulfilled today, and definitely contributes to my level of health today, and my balance, my mental balance, and physical health. So if you feel like you want to make a change, but you don't think it's possible, then you need to try and recognize what thoughts you're having about that change. Why do you believe it's not possible? What is holding you back? And is it because you're trying to avoid confronting a situation that might be difficult, that might be uncomfortable, that might put you out of your comfort zone? You need to really look into those thoughts and try to challenge that belief that might be holding you back, and believe that something is possible. When something is potentially scary to you, given the experience that I had and the amount of fear that was holding me back, I always tell people, if it's scaring you, move towards it, because that is something that's going to help you grow and develop and be more fulfilled in the long term. I'm not using the word happiness, because you can't be happy constantly. There's always going to be moments where you have to suffer through things. But if you're suffering through something because you know it's contributing to making you feel more fulfilled or feeling better, more healthy in yourself, then you know it's worth it. So in my case, I knew that I had to try doing something different. Even if I was going to fail at that, it didn't matter, because the current situation I was in was not working for me. So the message here is try, don't worry if you fail, keep trying, don't give up if you know that you're not happy in your current situation, and try to cultivate that growth mindset and look for help when you need it, because maybe that's all you need to make that change. For some people, we don't believe that we're worth investing time into ourselves and into our growth. However, you are that important and you need to invest that time in yourself. So don't be held back by your fear. Really try and push towards it, because on the other side of that fear is where you will feel most like you're most fulfilled. And I can guarantee from my experience that now when I feel like I'm in some kind of difficult situation, a situation I'm not happy with, instead, I sometimes get drawn back into that idea of, oh, I can't change the situation, and feeling the stress and anxiety, but I recognize it straight away now, and I'm like, okay, that situation, I'm going to have to confront that, because it's holding me back. And I know on the other side of that, there's something which is going to make me feel much more fulfilled and give me then more energy, and energy to make podcasts and energy to train people. So I really hope that the energy that I've shown you, that having that energy is possible, maybe something I've touched on today that you feel that you recognize in yourself and you would like some resources on working on that, then please get in contact. The next episode is going to be on mindset, but much more focused on how you can apply that mindset to sport. So I've got more examples, plenty, of where those came from. But really the key thing is believing you can do something. Thank you for listening. Please like and follow, and I will see you on the next episode to go more deeply into mindset applied to training. Have a great day. Thank you.